Good evening. I'd like to call our meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. I have a clerk. Please call the roll.
Supervisor Fountain?
Here.
Treasurer Horning?
Here.
Clerk Chophew here. Trustee Colliane? Absent. Trustee Germain?
Here.
Trustee Harper?
Here.
Trustee Petrucci? Here.
Thank you. Item number 4 is approval of our meeting agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Harper. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Call to the public. Anybody call to the public this evening? Nobody at call to the public. We'll move on to item number 6, which is approval of our consent agenda.
So moved. Support.
Motion by Trustee Germain, second by Trustee Petrucci. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Item number 6, we have a presentation this evening. John Pfeffer is going to review our audit. Good evening, John.
Good evening. Thank you.
And then we'll have a little slide presentation as well from Manager Wickman to kind of follow along with.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
First of all, I'd like to start off by saying thank you to the Hartland Township for having us as your independent auditors. It's always a pleasure to work with you and really enjoy it. So I would like to start out by thanking some important people that are involved with the audit. First of all, the township manager, James. He does a great job helping us understand the different projects and things that are going on with the township and explaining, what's happening, and that's very important from the auditor standpoint. Along with that, too, both the treasurer's office, clerk's office is very helpful. And what happens as we come in, we're trying to get the audit done timely and within budget, and all those items are very important. And I can't forget Susan, who does a great job with the accounting. The importance of that is that there's very few proposed audit adjustments, which means that the information that the township board is getting during the year is accurate. And so that's very important that you're getting that information. So I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that. The audit report obviously is very lengthy. It's over 113 pages, but I'm just going to hit on a couple of the important areas. The first one, which is the most important, is the auditor's independent opinion. And we are issuing an unqualified opinion, which is the highest level of opinion that the independent auditor can issue. The importance of this is for a couple reasons. The state of Michigan immediately wants to know what kind of opinion that you have. The importance of that is because their state share revenues, they will look at your opinion to determine whether they're going to continue with that or whether they have to come in and take a look at anything. And should the township have to go out for any bonding or any other financing, the unqualified opinion is very important to have also. In the opinion, it just says the financial statements present fairly. And again, these are your financial statements. We're just issuing an opinion on them. Along with that, I wanted to mention that you are also able to stay within budget during the year, which is also important. And with that, you're able to add to your fund balance in the general fund during the year. And so from the financial standpoint, again, this is a little bit of historic information. This goes back to March of 2017. But again, it's a snapshot in time when we're performing the audit, and the financial condition is very good. And James, if you could go to the first graph. So the importance of the first graph, and I would look at this as a resident, is where the revenues of the township come from. And this is the general fund. And as you can see that there's almost $2.4 million in revenue. And the surprising part is that the property taxes and the admin fee are really only about 35% of the revenue that comes to the township. Obviously, a lot of the taxes go to the schools, but as you can see, the state share revenues are a significant portion of the revenues in the general fund. So it's always important, again, as a board member or us as auditors to monitor what's going on the state level to make sure that, there's not going to be any changes in those areas. And then, James, if you go on to the next graph. The next graph are the total expenditures of the general fund. So the importance of this is that when we come in as auditors, we look at, what's the financial condition of the township? In other words, with expenditures of $1.8 million annually, what kind of fund balance is in reserve to meet those expenditures, and so that you can meet your obligations. And again, back to the first graph, which over half of our revenues are coming from state share revenues. If anything changed from that standpoint, again, with with the expenditures that the township has, you may have to react fairly quickly. If you go to the next graph, you will see here that the change in the actual fund balance at the end of the year in the general fund. And we're on an uptick at this point, but as I've discussed with James, you are going to have some expenditures in the next year, so that fund balance will come down. Currently, it's about 144% of your annual expenditures, and to me, that's a good number. Anywhere from 70 above is a good place to be. The only reason I kind of cut it off around that area is that if you had a change in the state share revenues, you would have to react to that and have to make adjustments in your budget, reducing your expenditures. So right now it's at 144%, which is really good. So I did want to mention that. Also, from the standpoint, we also like to take a look at the actual investments of the township. So I like to, as auditor, look at, if I was sitting at the board table and wanted these are things I would want to know. And not everyone really understands that the township has over $16 million invested in different investments. And the good thing with Hartland Township is all of it has either collateralized or FDIC insured, or it's with a very strong institution that from our standpoint is very good. So again, you may not be getting the highest return out there, but that's not the most important thing. Again, I evaluate that looking at it as if I was on the board, and we don't want to take any risk, and the treasurer's done a good job with that. So to me, again, that would be an important thing that I would want to know. And one other item too I'd like to mention with Hartland is that as we come in as auditors, you have to evaluate the internal controls, treasurer's office, clerk's office. And I will say that James has done a great job with his mapping of the offices, and with the help of the different offices, obviously everybody's contributed to it. And the importance of this is when we come in and we look at what the controls are, the checks and balances between the treasurer and clerk, and then we test them and to see, are they working? And when we have strong controls and they're working, that's an indication to us that everything is in good shape that way, which is very important. So I did want you to know that, and actually I used the mapping that James has done here for some other units, that when they're looking for suggestions, I've used it. So that's an important thing, the internal controls of the township. So when you hear that, I just wanted to mention it. And then with that, I'd just like to open it up for any questions. I would hope that at some point tonight you could approve the audit report. It has to be submitted to the state of Michigan by the end of this month.
Any board members have any questions?
Do you know currently what Hartland Township Standard & Poor's global rating is?
I do not.
Anybody?
We do. Yeah, we do.
AA, positive outlook.
So is that the highest, or?
No.
No, AAA would be.
AAA is highest.
It's a good goal. It's a tough goal to achieve, and we'll certainly do what we can.
How do we compare to other townships of our size in that particular category?
I don't have good benchmarks reliably from all of our neighbors. I'm quite satisfied with it. As a township, you get into the AAAs, usually the larger forms of government that are able to produce more reports and modeling, like the county's bond rating is AAA. With time, we can keep moving in that direction. I don't know if you can offer any more insight on that.
I'll move to accept the audit report from Pfeffer, Hannaford, and Pelka for the year 2016-17.
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Harper. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
And for those that are at home, if you're interested, this is on our website at the heartlandtwp.com. You can review any of that information that was just shared with us at your leisure. Pending and new business, we have a resolution this evening, Consumers Energy Company Electric Franchise Ordinance. Good evening.
I'm Catherine Burkholder. I am the Community Affairs Manager for Livingston County. Thank you for having me this evening. And I was talking with James before the meeting, and he said you did have a chance to review the franchise agreement. It is a 30-year agreement, and I don't know that you need me to go through each piece of it, or whether you'd like me to just summarize, or you just want to move forward. Is entirely up to you.
Well, I think I'm going to turn it over to our manager, Wickman, and he can give us the highlights of the agreement, and then if there's questions for yourself or for James, we can proceed from there.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just briefly, I did provide the 1987 ordinance for your reference. That was also a 30-year ordinance. The new language proposed, you see, very much aligns with that. Was reviewed by a township attorney, and there were some language changes made as a part of those conversations. It's pretty straightforward. I can't really add value to it. This would renew the franchise with Consumers Energy for another 30 years. As you know, as we've talked about, DTE's franchise would come up for a vote of the people in a few years down the road. That 30-year franchise is later.
Move to approve the resolution adopting the Consumer Energy Company Electric Franchise Ordinance.
Support.
Motion by Treasurer Horning, second by Trustee Kalani. Is there any discussion? Being none, I'll have the clerk please call the roll.
Trustee Petrucci?
Yes.
Clerk Chofew? Yes. Trustee Germain?
Yes.
Trustee Collier?
Yes.
Supervisor Fountain?
Yes.
Treasurer Horning?
Yes.
Trustee Harper?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, if I might just have tonight, if you could sign one of the ordinances and the acceptance, just sign and date them, and then I'm going to leave this with your clerk, because there are a few extra steps you will have to take. And the first one, and most important, is this has to be published in your newspaper within 15 days. So that's in here, and then I can call you after that, and we can get the rest squared away.
Okay.
Did you want to have this signed tonight?
If I could, just...
We probably have about 10 or 15 more minutes for this portion, then we'll take a brief recess.
You want to wait till...
Yeah.
Yeah. It shouldn't take too long.
Okay.
Thank you. Item number 8B. Mr. West, good evening. This is a playground purchasing agreement.
Good evening. What we have before us this evening is the proposals for the playscape equipment for both Heritage Park and Settlers Park to be installed in the spring of 2018. As we've previously discussed at prior meetings, the discount that we're receiving by purchasing through the U.S. government pricing authorizes us a discount if we purchase this fall. The vendor, Sinclair Recreation, has agreed to store the equipment for us throughout the winter and install this equipment in the spring of 2018. Both site plans have been reviewed by the Park Site Plan Committee as well as the Township Board at a work session on September 5th. So what you have before you this evening is the actual purchase agreement to make the purchase of the equipment. We've discussed prior that Settlers Park may require some additional land balancing. The Park Site Plan Committee met on site earlier this evening to discuss the proposed scope of work. I have been directed to secure quotes for that work, and I will return to the board at a future meeting with the quotes for that work. The original budget, or I should say this equipment combined, falls less than what was originally allocated in the board's capital improvement plan. And it is projected that even with the proposed land balancing at Settlers Park, we will still fall under the proposed CIP allocation. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this equipment.
Where's this one going to be located in Settlers Park?
In Settlers Park, this will be located just to the north of the pavilion,
North, so it'll be like behind the pavilion,
if you're standing at Township Hall.
opposite of the parking lot.
Correct.
Across from the bathrooms.
Is there room to expand it in the future?
116 acres.
There may be some grades and trees depending on how.
The current challenge, we're going to have to balance the land. It's kind of on a hill. We're going to knock about a foot out and level it, but very minor. But yes, there certainly is room.
They've got it mowed and staked out there, so you can go see it.
Are we only talking about Settlers Park now?
No, both Settlers and Heritage are proposed for tonight.
Can you go to the other one?
That's Heritage Park.
This is Heritage Park.
And if you recall, the Settlers Park was geared towards to be the anchor playscape or destination playscape where people would actually drive to visit that feature. Yet at Heritage Park, it was more of a basically an option, I guess, to allow the park patrons or siblings to use that while their siblings are playing the sports there. So this one's not nearly as big. This one also has room to expand. It will be in place at Heritage Park to also permit expansion of the pavilion if that's desired at a future date. All this equipment can be relocated if necessary, but we are going to leave a buffer in between them.
And where'd you say this one's going to go?
The Heritage Park site is just east of the east end of the pavilion. So there is a service drive, a little 2-track service drive to the overflow parking in the northeastern corner of the park. It will be between that service drive and the actual pavilion.
If approved tonight, would you anticipate it being completed in both parks?
Pending the frost laws and when those come off in spring, but they're looking to get a jump on it in the spring. They anticipate something of this nature can be about a week's time frame or 5 working days. So once the ground is not saturated and they can actually get the equipment on, it'll be very quick in the spring. We look kind of as soon as the snow breaks.
So you'll have all the grades ready to go this fall?
Absolutely.
So all they have to do is come in and
Yes.
lay it out, whatever they do, and put their
Yep.
equipment, and then whatever that material is that they put in there.
These costs include all equipment, all the perimeter base, as well as the firebar fall protection.
Are these the same ones we looked at last meeting?
Yes.
No changes?
No. The only changes, I think, from the original park site plan committee was we didn't include the swings, and we were trying to fit the swings in a different location. We've now come,
In Settlers Park?
both of them. Both of them will have swings.
Can you go back to the other one, James?
They're all on the same pad now, correct?
Correct.
They're all on the same pad now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
So that slight
How
gap.
do you do that? So how's it going to, are they just going to combine the pads, sort of, or?
Yes, this was just a rendering of,
Yeah.
in case we decided to move the swings to the north of or to the west of the pavilion, we now have decided it'd behoove the township to just collectively
I
keep it
think
on
it's
one
safer,
pad.
because if you have one kid that wants to play on swings and one's that's climbing on the climb, one parent, they're watching 2 different directions. I kind of like it all in one.
And by doing the grading, that allows us to keep them together. That's part of the reason for the grading.
I have a question.
And the swings have, for handicap?
There is a single handicap swing as well as infant swings
And
at
you-
both parks.
And is there more than one ramp for wheelchair?
There will be additional ramps that's not showing on the rendering, but each playscape barrier will have 2 ramps.
That was my
Mr.
question.
Jermaine?
I'll make a motion, though.
And both sites will be ADA compliant. I do want to add that.
I'll make a motion to approve the game time contract for the playground equipment at Heritage Park and Settlers Park for a fee of $210,000 and the necessary budget amendments.
Support.
Motion by trustee Jermaine, second by trustee Harper. Discussion? Questions? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
And item number 8C is a resolution, water bond SAD interest rate adjustment. Susan, would this be in your wheelhouse?
Yep. So as you recall, back in March of this year earlier, we did a bond refunding on the water bonds, and we got a lower rate. And so that means that we need to adjust the interest that we're charging on the SAD down to 1% over the bond interest. So the resolution in front of you is to do exactly that, is to, it directs Kathy to change the interest for the remaining 4 years on the special assessments to that lower rate.
What would be the savings to our residents?
No, it's significant. Because right now we're charging, I'm sorry, I don't have that agenda memo in front of us, but it's...
3.1415?
Yeah, it's so I'm sorry, I don't have like a average savings to the residents, but I could certainly get that for you.
That's okay. I think it might be helpful to more or less, what would this mean to the folks in the water district in terms of what the rate reduction would be. Do they pay that on their
Their winter taxes?
Yeah, so it would be nice to kind of what the average might be. Are they saving $100 or saving $200 or?
Good question. I'll find that out.
Question I would want to know.
Yeah.
It would be somewhat limited. It's the remaining balance.
Yeah, so
there's not many years left.
Not many. Yeah, I was going to say it's not going to be super great, but it's a significant drop in the interest rate. But the overall interest shouldn't have been all that much left anyway.
Right.
Right, because it's a declining balance on
Right,
top of
right.
it. So.
Exactly. But it would be nice, I think, if people want to.
I can do that. You bet.
Other questions?
Well, I'll move to approve the resolution adjusting the interest rate charged on the water bond SAD to 2.5199%.
Support.
Motion by trustee Kalani, second by trustee Jermaine. Was there any more questions? Matt, did you have another question?
I think, is this a resolution? Do we need?
It is a resolution. Any other questions? Have the clerk please call the roll.
Treasurer Horning,
Yes.
Trustee Collier,
Yes.
Supervisor Fountain,
Yes.
Trustee Harper,
Yes.
Trustee Petrucci,
Yes.
Trustee Jermaine,
Yes.
Clerk Schofield, yes.
Thank you. And we'll go into board reports. We are in our second meeting in September, and we'll start with trustee Petrucci.
I don't have any report tonight other than I won't be at their next regular meeting. I will not be here.
Thank you. Clerk Schofield.
No report.
Treasurer Horning.
I just wanted to tell everybody how amazing my two people in my office were. We collected 60% of the tax roll in 7 days. I mean, they took in 1,000 payments last Monday. We've never had it like this in our lives. We took in $5.5 million out of a $10.2 million total tax roll. So we took in more than half the tax roll in 7 days when they had 10 weeks to pay. So it was crazy, and we balanced to the penny, and Larry and I got the distribution done. Larry signed them, and they're out in the mail tomorrow. So we have pretty much wrapped it up with 95% collection rate. That's it for me.
Very good. Thank you. Trustee Kalani.
No report tonight.
Trustee Jermaine.
A question for James and/or Bob West, but I see you stepped out. We had a HERO board meeting last week, and there is a couple of improvements to the building that we think would be beneficial to like almost prolong the life of the building. So my question is, what would be the means and the timeline to provide that list to you guys so we